United States Navy, 1942 to 45. I done 2 tours, and after I got out, when I came back home, there wasn't any jobs or anything. And of course, my wife already had a baby, and then after I was home a little while, she got pregnant again, and so I couldn't get a job, and I ranked with sonarmen, see, and they didn't even know what sonar was in the New Albany, Louisville area. So I went back in, and I went to submarine school. And because that way, I mean, in submarines, you got 20% of your base pay plus 50% hazardous duty pay, which was give me enough money to take care of my family.
Yeah,
and
made it a whole lot easier,
yeah,
didn't it,
yeah,
than
yeah.
trying to survive on the outside.
Oh, yeah. Just went to boot camp at Great Lakes, Illinois, and then I went aboard a old Ford Piper tin can, which was from World War I. Tin can they took out mothballs because remember our fleet was destroyed at Pearl Harbor, and boy, it was an old one. And then we were on submarine patrol in the North Atlantic, running convoys to England and Scotland. And we were up there sinking the German submarines.
So you did quite a bit of traveling around then, didn't you?
Oh yeah, and then
Yeah.
that, and we also went into the Mediterranean, where I mean, and that was the African theater, and with on submarine patrol. I mean, that was well, of course the Germans at that time, they were in control of Africa, North Africa. And then after that. I went back to sonar school for a refresher course, and then when I got back out, graduated again out of sonar school, they sent me to the USS Tolman, destroyer mine layer 28. Then I went to the Pacific, and then I was in quite a few. I was in most of the battles in the Pacific. Ended up at Iwo Jima in Okinawa.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And when I got out, that's when I went back home and couldn't get a job. So then I went back in the Navy into this, and went to submarine. Got out of submarine school. Of course, the war was over then, so we just patrolled around, then played in the Atlantic, and then I went to Pacific. Campaign ribbons.
Oh,
The
okay.
campaigns that I participated in.
Oh, okay.
That was
You were
American.
sharing some of those with me.
Yeah, well, there was American theater. That was the American theater. Then there was the Asiatic Pacific. There was, and then the European Asian. I mean, that was in that area. When you know the areas, you get campaign ribbon.
Oh, okay.
And then in the Pacific, and then in the Atlantic with the destroyers that always was escorting the convoys, where they got a presidential unit citation for their job of taking them across and all without too many casualties. And that was a presidential commendation from Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Oh.
And boy, that was quite. I went to the
Yeah, I'd say-
after I went to the Pacific, and I hit a lot of the invasions over there. But that was a destroyer mine layer I was on the Tolman. We used to lay mines, and also was a destroyer, which usually done a little bit of everything.
That's what it sounds like.
Well, we had 5-inch guns on board. We had 40 millimeters, 20 millimeters, and most of the invasions, what we would do when the Marines were going in, where they had what they call land fire, and then the destroyers was in the first line, and light cruisers, heavy cruisers, and the battleships. And then the carriers were usually back out about 50 to 60 miles. I mean, because they didn't want it too close in them. And we used to land fire in, see. We were firing in, and the light cruisers over us, and the heavy cruisers over us, and the battleships firing over the top of us before the Marines went in. And we used to really pray and claim because we were in the first line, and when the shells dropped short, not really. I mean, it was just nothing happen except just the combat. I mean, and other than that, wasn't anything.
Well, we thank you.
That's about it.